Okay, maybe I'll finish before that. Okay. So let me start with a very classical problem in affine algebraic geometry. So it is about maps between two polynomial rings. So consider a polynomial ring in n variables over complex numbers, and a polynomial ring in m variables where m is less than n, and phi is a surjective morphism, K algebra morphism. Now let us look at the kernel. I is the kernel. So the question is that whether I is generated by n minus m elements. So this notation mu, it stands for minimal number of generators. So the question is that whether the kernel is generated by the correct number of elements. So starting from here, we will see many variants of this question. So this question only asks that whether the kernel is generated by correct number of elements, but one can ask a stronger question regarding the nature of the generation. So that is question 2. So stronger question is that uh, whether they are generated by variables. By that we mean that do there exist some polynomials f1, f2, fn such that I is generated by these n minus m variables f1 up to fn minus m, and c x1, x2, xn is basically polynomial ring with these variables f1 up to fn. Now obviously the question started with complex numbers, but these questions make sense for any field k. And people started investigating these questions. And in this talk, I will focus more on question 1 and not on question 2. But in passing, probably I'll put a few remarks on question 2. And if one is interested, one can go through the expository article by Amartya Datta and Nina Gupta. That is an excellent expository article, and it discusses in detail the development and the current status of these two questions, especially question 2. So following is a remarkable result which I wanted to mention. So this is a famous result by Abhankar Mo and independently by Suzuki from 1955. So I'm putting a simple statement here, taking characteristic k equal to 0, and the case is n equal to 2, m equal to 1. So I have a polynomial ring in two variables, and there is a surjective morphism to polynomial ring in one variable. Then the answer to both the questions is in the affirmative. And of course, if you look at question 1, if I go back to question 1 for a moment, so I have so replace c by k, and I have two variables, and on the right hand side I have one variable. Now left hand side is a UFD, and you can observe that the kernel is a prime ideal of height 1, and therefore it is a principal ideal. So question 1 answer is kind of almost immediate. The question, whereas question 2 is very difficult and it required a lot of technique. So Abhankar Mo actually proved a more general result involving positive characteristics, and I'm not getting into the detail here. And it involves certain conditions, and kind of if you remove those conditions, in general this result is not true for positive characteristic. And due to there are examples by Segre and Nagata, and I believe there are references in uh, Datta and Gupta article where one can find these examples. So these are again discussed in detail in that article. Okay, so as regarding question 1, so let us make certain observation. First, I am removing the assumption of complex numbers. So let k be any field because it makes sense for any field. So take a k algebra epimorphism. So this epimorphism is important. So I have a surjective morphism phi from polynomial ring in n variables to m variables, and kernel is I. Then the same question that whether I is generated by n minus m elements. So first we know that first isomorphism theorem, it tells us that the quotient ring kx1 x2 xn modulo I is isomorphic to the polynomial ring So therefore, left hand side is also an integral domain. Immediately we get that I is a prime ideal of height n minus m, and actually we get even more than that. Uh, so this is a regular ring kx1 x2 xn modulo I, because it is isomorphic to a polynomial ring, and therefore if you apply some exercise given in Matsumura, the minimal number of generators of I mod I square is n minus m. You see that in order to I be generated by n minus m elements, it is necessary that I mod I square is generated by n minus m elements. So that one gets very easily. So whether one can achieve that I is generated by n minus m elements, so that is the real question. So now if we forget about this situation, like I have a polynomial ring and I have two polynomial rings and I is occurring as kernel of this surjective K algebra morphism. And if we stick to this fact that I have a polynomial ring over a field, so let us just look at the left hand side. So I have a polynomial ring over a field and I have an ideal. So forget about prime ideal. And suppose I impose this condition that I mod I square is generated by n minus m elements, then whether I is generated by correct number of elements. So I just spoke it roughly, but let me put it in the form of conjecture, which is due to Murthy. So that's what is mentioned here. So Murthy's complete intersection conjecture is the following. So to avoid confusion, I have changed the notation here. So I am using D variables. So I have a polynomial ring over a field and I have an ideal I, not necessarily a prime ideal, such that height of I is equal to R, and which is same as mu I mod I square. Then Murthy suspected that I should be generated by R elements. So that is a nice situation. Murthy did not put this as a conjecture. He asked this as a question. So it was his 1975 Queen's lecture. So he asked whether I is generated by R elements. So nowadays people call it Murthy's complete intersection conjecture. So my talk will be focused on this question, Murthy's conjecture. And this conjecture is still open. So there are a few results. So Murthy made this conjecture in 1975. So yes, any question? Okay. So this conjecture was made in 1975, and in 1978, Mohan Kumar came up with a solution, in a partial solution. He put some restrictions, and so far this is the best result that we know about Murthy's conjecture. And Mohan Kumar's methods are, meaning, they are amazing methods, and we have not seen any new development since then, in more than 40 years. So no new method has come up to tackle this problem yet. Now, also note that if Murthy's conjecture is true, then it automatically implies that question 1 has an affirmative solution, because this is a more general question. So in fact, in this talk, I would like to talk a little about Mohan Kumar's methods. So I'll discuss some generalities that are nowadays mostly textbook material. And I believe there are some students, so one can put them as exercise for the students. Those are nice exercise. And I listed them in this way so that I will be able to refer to these results on and off during my talk. So first one is that let A be a commutative Noetherian ring and I be an ideal. Assume that I mod I square is generated by R elements. So I have fixed some generators of I mod I square. So I equal to F1, F2, Fr plus I square. Then there exists some S in I square such that I is generated by F1, F2, Fr, comma S. So what we observe, I'm seeing that I is not very far from being generated by R elements. You just need one more generator, at most one more generator. And S has certain properties which are very useful. So S into 1 minus S is in F1, F2, Fr. And if I prime is taken to be F1, F2, Fr, comma 1 minus S, then I prime is co-maximal with I, because I contains S and I prime contains 1 minus S. And then I intersection I prime is nice. That is F1, F2, Fr. So this is the whole exercise. And hint for this exercise would be use Nakayama's lemma. And there is a variant of this result which I will also need. So one can repeat the same exercise by replacing I square with a smaller ideal k contained in I square. So again the same thing, same conclusion will hold. And I will need that remark. So this was exercise 1. Now exercise 2, it kind of says that well, whether I mod I square is generated by R elements implies I is generated by R elements. So it has something to do with the Krull dimension of the ring. So it says that if this R exceeds the Krull dimension of the ring, then I is automatically generated by R elements. So this is also a nice exercise. One can use prime avoidance type of arguments, and these exercises are there in Ishbek Rao's book and Rabia's MPhil thesis, Rabia Basu's MPhil thesis. So if one cannot get hold of Rabia's MPhil thesis, one can look at Ishbek Rao's book as well. So this was our exercise 2. And again, I will be using this exercise in describing Mohan Kumar's method. And then, okay. So I have put an easy case as R equal to 2. So this is again an exercise. So let A be a ring. I is an ideal such that I mod I square is generated by 2 elements. Then it is easy to prove that there exists a projective A module P of rank 2 such that P maps onto the ideal I. So I have given a hint that one can use exercise 1 and a simple patching diagram. So one has to patch, and if one knows a little bit about unimodular rows, so one is using here that any unimodular row of length 2 is completable. So that's what is used in proving this result. Now this is an easy case. Why I'm saying that this is an easy case, meaning easy case of the original question, question 1, because if I take, say, a polynomial ring, and I take an polynomial ring over a field, and if I take an ideal I such that I is equal to f1 f2 plus I square, then I'll get a projective module over that polynomial ring of rank 2, and it maps onto I. Now by Quillen-Suslin theorem, who proved Serre conjecture, we know that the projective module is free over a polynomial ring, and therefore I will be generated by 2 elements. So this is the easy case R equal to 2 of Murthy's conjecture. So that's what yeah, so that's what I have written here, that if I take mu I mod I square equal to 2, then mu I equal to 2, which I just explained. So in one stroke, we can see that question 1 has an affirmative answer whenever n minus m is equal to 2. So if I have n variables on the left hand side and a surjective map onto a polynomial ring in m variables, and the difference is 2, then we always have an affirmative answer that I is generated, the kernel is generated by the correct number of elements. Okay. Now, what did Mohan Kumar prove? Mohan Kumar proved the following result. So let A be the polynomial ring k x1, x2, xd, and I is an ideal of the polynomial ring such that mu, so here is this condition, Mohan Kumar's bound, that mu I mod I square is R, which is bigger than or equal to this dimension of A mod I plus 2. Then mu I is R. And I'll, as I said, that I'll talk a little bit about Mohan Kumar's methods. So to prove this result, what Mohan Kumar did is the following. He observed the following, that after a change of variables, one can ensure that I contains a monic polynomial in one of the variables, say xd. So then he transferred this problem to, meaning he did not use the structure of polynomial ring over a field. So he is proving some more general result. So the following setup, that let R be a ring. So R is any commutative Noetherian ring, and I contained in RT is an ideal containing a monic polynomial. And then the same restriction. Then Mohan Kumar proves that there exists a projective RT module P of rank R mapping onto I. Okay. So now again, if you look at consequence of Mohan Kumar's result, if we go back to question 1, so this theorem is immediate from the theorem I wrote below. So I have this setup. I is an ideal of k x1 x2 xd. So I contains a monic in xd. So you put R as the ring k x1 x2 up to xd minus 1. So I is an ideal containing monic polynomial. It satisfies these conditions. Then mu I is equal to R. How do I know? Then Mohan Kumar's theorem, this theorem, the monic polynomial theorem, it says that there exists a projective RT module P of rank R mapping onto I. Now, when it is applied to polynomial ring over a field, then we know that the projective module is free by Quillen-Suslin theorem. So then Mohan Kumar gets this result. And interestingly, even in this setup, that when R is a commutative Noetherian ring and I is an ideal containing a monic polynomial, in this setup, 5-6 years after Mohan Kumar's work, Satya Mandal and Ravi Rao independently, they could actually ensure that this P can be taken to be free. So using some remarkable methods, some very tricky methods. Okay. So now I'm going to describe Mohan Kumar's proof. So before that, let me just ask you, is there any question or am I going too fast?
No, there is no question in the chat, but people can ask questions if they have any at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any, but people are free to ask questions on chat box, and I will.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, anytime one can also stop me and ask questions. I have no problem. Okay, so let me go back to the previous slide. So I hope this is clear from the context that why Mohan Kumar's theorem written below this one, it implies the above one. You simply apply the Quillen-Suslin theorem that projective modules over polynomial ring are free. So in Mohan Kumar's situation, it was just enough to get a projective module mapping onto I. But as I said that afterwards, Mandal and Rao, they ensured that P can be taken to be free without going into the polynomial ring over a field. So in this general setup. And I would also like to mention that these results and methods of Mohan Kumar and then Mandal Rao, they actually at that time they served the purpose of proving this result, but afterwards when we started working on projective modules and Bhattarakar Raja's work came up, this Euler class group, etc. So these methods are used again and again. So Mohan Kumar's proof, I'll give a sketch of the proof, not the whole proof. I will not go to patching diagrams, etc. But some key points I will mention. So I have this I, fix some generators of I mod I square. So F1, F2, Fr. And we can assume that F1 is monic. How can we do that? We know that I contains a monic polynomial. So you take a very high power of that monic polynomial. So suppose I contains a monic polynomial F. So take a high power, say f to the power something p, and that belongs to I square. So you add it to f1. So then nothing actually changes. I mod I square is still generated by this new f1, f2 up to fr, but this time f1 becomes monic because you have added a high power of a monic to the old f1. Now let J be the contraction of I and consider the quotient ring RT mod J square T comma F1, which means the ideal generated by J square T and F1 in RT. Now I must point out here that uh, Mohan Kumar is pushing F1 into the quotient below because he wants to keep this monic polynomial intact. So that is for the purpose of patching, because those who know a little bit again about unimodular rows would know that if I have a unimodular row whose one entry is monic, then that unimodular row is completable. So that's what he had in mind, and he wants to use that. So he is not disturbing this monic polynomial. So now this quotient ring, now let us make some observations. I'm putting bar to denote whatever is happening in the ring B. So I bar is now generated by F2 bar, F3 bar, FR bar plus I bar square. And what is dimension of B? Dimension of B is same as dimension of R mod J square, because R mod J square to B is an integral extension. So because that monic polynomial is sitting there, you get an integral extension. And dimension of R mod J square is same as dimension of R mod J. And again, R mod J to RT mod I is an integral extension. Again, because I contains a monic. So therefore, all these dimensions are same. And therefore, we get this crucial fact. We know that R was bigger than dimension of RT mod I plus 2. So now, if we just observe that, then R minus 1, it becomes strictly bigger than dimension of B because of these calculations. Now, if we go back to exercise 2, where I said that if I have I mod I square generated by some elements, and if it exceeds the Krull dimension of the ring, then I is generated by correct number of elements. So if we apply exercise 2, then I bar is generated by correct number of elements, in this case R minus 1 elements. So let me call them H2 bar up to HR bar. So H2, etc., they are coming from I. And now if I remove the bar, so then what do I get? You remember that B was basically RT mod J square T comma F1. So if I remove the bar, so I get I equal to F1, H2, H3 up to HR plus J square T. Now I have two advantages here. First of all, my monic polynomial, it comes back to its own place, and I have a smaller ideal. J square T is smaller than I square, and J square T is an extended ideal. So that is again very crucial. Now I'll apply exercise 1. So exercise 1, actually exercise 1 along with its remark. So probably let me go back to exercise 1. So in place of I square, you think about J square T. So there exists S belong to J square T such that I will be equal to F1, F2, FR, comma S, etc. So think J square T in place of I square. And then also note this I prime. So meaning I intersection I prime is very nice. So in that case, in our case, obviously we have F1, then H2 up to HR. So let me go back to that proof. Apply exercise 1 to find this I prime such that I intersection I prime is F1 H2 up to HR, and I prime is co-maximal with J square T. So that is crucial, that it is not only co-maximal with I, it is co-maximal with J square T. Now as I prime contains a monic polynomial, there is a lemma in T.Y. Lamb's book, a beautiful lemma, which says that this contraction of I prime will be co-maximal with contraction of J square T, which is J square. So therefore, we can find some s in J such that 1 plus s is in I prime. Now let us look at the localizations. Invert 1 plus s. 1 plus s is in I prime, so I prime goes away. So I get I 1 plus a localized at 1 plus s is generated by f1 h2 up to hr. And if I invert s, because s belongs to I get the whole ring, and I can take the whole ring to be generated by 1 0 0 0. So I have these two co-maximal elements s and 1 plus s. On one hand, I get that if I localize at 1 plus s, I get R generators, and on the other hand, if I invert s, I get R generators, and they are kind of trivial. Now, if I do the patching, so that is the standard patching diagram, and which I am not writing or drawing here. In the patching diagram, one inverts finally both s and 1 plus s, and then this f1 h2 up to hr, it becomes a unimodular row with a monic entry f1, and therefore this is completable, and the patching diagram gives that there is a projective module of rank r which maps onto I. So this proves Mohan Kumar's result.
Comments? There are some comments here.
Okay.
Yeah. Ravi Rao is asking whether did Murthy have Sayre's problem in mind when he made his conjecture?
Yeah, I really don't know, but if you see the analogy that you have this affine space kx1, x2, xn, projective modules are free, and on the other hand, if you are looking at ideals such that I mod I square is generated by R elements, so that abstraction vanishes. So I think something like that he had in mind, because meaning Say's problem was in the thick of things at that time, around 70s. But I really don't know meaning how he made this connection. Yeah, if Ravira wants to comment on that, I'd be very happy to hear.
Now, what did the Queen's notes tell? Because Queen's notes was prior to Sayre's conjecture, exactly
Yes.
1 year before,
Mm-hmm.
and number of people made comments, but Murthy doesn't seem to have told about Sayre's problem. It is Swan who wrote an article in that same issue
Mm-hmm.
who talks about Sayre's problem, whereas Murthy did not actually.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, here also in this, when you give this proof,
Hmm.
you used F1 is monic somewhere, right?
In this proof, yeah.
Yeah. So what exactly, how did you patch? Because one is 100, the other is F1 H2 HR. So what is the connection? How did you
So
patch?
yeah, that is Suslin's monic polynomial theorem, right?
Okay, you're using something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So
But
yeah,
then,
when Mohan Kumar proved, obviously Suslin's theorem came, right?
okay. So
It was
this is the
78.
proof given by Weibel and Jaramita. Am
Yeah,
I right?
actually, yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah, so
Okay.
the proof, yeah, so this is different from what Mohan Kumar wrote. Actually, Mohan
Yeah.
Kumar's proof is a bit
Yeah.
difficult to read, at least for me.
Right.
Then I learned this proof from Raja, and which was from this, as Ravi Rao pointed out, that is Canadian Journal of Math, 1980. Jaramita and Weibel wrote an exposition, a paper, and they gave an exposition of Mohan Kumar's proof, and that is a very lucid exposition. So
Right.
I'm doing it from there. Yeah. Thanks, Ravi, for pointing this
Okay.
out. Yeah, I was
Okay.
about to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you'll also notice that I have marked this part in a red color, because I would like to mention one recent result in this direction, where I'll just mimic Mohan Kumar's proof, and this red part I'll replace by something else, some other arguments. Okay. So yeah, so this I already mentioned. So let me again recapitulate applications to question 1. So I have this, I have written it again, that K algebra epimorphism from polynomial ring in n variables to m variables. So from Mohan Kumar's result, what do we get? We get the kernel is generated by correct number of elements if either n minus m equal to 2, the easiest case, or n is bigger than or equal to 2m plus 2. So if you put Mohan Kumar's bound here, you will see that n is greater than or equal to 2m plus 2. So then you can ask what is the simplest case one should attack. So what about n equal to 2m plus 1? But the amazing part is that even this question is wide open. So if m equal to 2 and n equal to 5, we don't know whether the question 1 has an affirmative answer or not. Okay. So we could make some improvements to Mohan Kumar's bound when
Mrinal, there is a question.
Yeah.
From Sarasis Mehta. This problem being studied from the point of view of module of differentials.
Okay. Yeah, so there are some studies of from that direction, but right now I don't have any reference in mind. Mandal did something, and I think he should look up Weibel's paper, maybe Weibel's. There is a paper of Weibel on complete intersection, so probably it touches on that.
No, probably Rossum. I don't know. Nikhilesh might be able to say correctly. There's a paper.
Okay.
There is a paper by Rossum,
Okay.
who was a student of a well-known person, Vanderberg or whatever, and his thesis had initiated that direction.
Okay. Okay. And also Blockmurthy Spiro, I think they also.
Much later. Yeah, that is different.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, Sarosij, probably I'll look up and give you send you some references. So now let us take k equal to fp bar. So this is algebraic closure of a finite field. So this is sometimes advantageous as far as these questions are concerned. So let R be an affine algebra over fp bar, and I is an ideal in RT containing a monic. Then, so this is an improved bound. Mu I mod I square, which is R, is bigger than or equal to dimension of RT mod I plus 1. So Mohan Kumar had this plus 2 and this is plus 1. So then mu I is equal to R. So this is a result I proved a couple of years back. So this proof is actually, it imitates Mohan Kumar's ideas and meaning and using some of the results of Srinivas, Amalendu Krishna, Satyamandal and Pawan Murthy. So let me collect their results in the form of one theorem. Okay, so this is actually, it requires some work that one has to apply Krishna Srinivas result to Mandal Murthy and all this. So putting simply, the result looks like this. So B is an affine algebra of dimension D greater than or equal to 2 over fp bar, and k is an ideal such that mu k mod k square is D, which is same as the dimension of the ring. Then mu k is equal to D, and actually it is more. If I give you generators of k mod k square, you can lift it to generators of k, but I did not mention it here. So you see, if you look at exercise 2, which I gave in the beginning, so there for a Noetherian ring, what happens is that if this number of generators of k mod k square, it crosses the Krull dimension, then k is generated by correct number of elements. But here it says that it is improved, and that is the key, that if I have this Krull dimension level D and mu k mod k square equal to D, then mu k is also equal to D. So so then using their result, we prove the following. So this is the more detailed statement where actually we can lift generators of I mod I square. So I is an ideal in an affine in RT, where R is an affine algebra over fp bar and I contains monic. Then instead of saying that I is generated by correct number of elements, I'll put emphasis on that. Then any set of R generators of I mod I square can be lifted to a set of R generators of I. And these are the cases. In case of R equal to 2, then we have this one, or R is bigger than or equal to 3. Now, Uh, okay, so this is the result. So how does one improve Mohan Kumar's bound in case of this affine algebra over FP bar? So for a moment, let me go back to Mohan Kumar's method and that red portion, the portion written in red. So I'll just follow simply these steps. Now you see here Mohan Kumar had R minus 1 is strictly bigger than dimension of B. But in our case, what I will get is that R minus 1 is equal to dimension of B because my bound is 1 less. Then in place of exercise 2, use the theorem where I mentioned the name of Sridivas, Amalendu Krishna, Mandal and Murthy. And we know that in that case, this I bar will be generated by correct number of elements. And then you follow the same path. So that's why I put it in separately in a different color. So rest of the proof will go as Mohan Kumar's proof. Okay, so yes. And okay, in passing, let me also mention that there is a variant of this result when R is a Noetherian ring, like a commutative Noetherian ring, and I is an ideal containing a monic polynomial, such that mu I mod I square t is R greater than or equal to dimension of RT mod I plus 2. But I'm not taking FP bar, so I'm just stating a result of Satya Mandal. Then any set of generators of R generators of I mod I square t can be lifted to a set of R generators of I. So we could improve that result of Mandal as well. So recently in a joint work with my student Sorjo, we have proved a variant of the above result by replacing I square by I square t. So this is an analog of a result of Mandal, which he proved in answering a question of Nori in the 90s. But I'm not getting into the details of this one. So okay, so as an application of our result, meaning the theorem I mentioned before. So let us go back to polynomial ring, and I mod mu I mod I square is n, which is bigger than or equal to dimension of a mod I plus 1. Then all these things are happening. So this is a direct application, meaning you just directly apply the previous theorem to the polynomial ring over FP bar, and with the following fact in mind that I contains a monic in XD. Okay, so this is immediate. So what happens to question 1 as regarding FP bar, as far as FP bar is concerned? So if I take an FP bar algebra morphism, which is surjective, and if I is kernel, and if we assume that n is bigger than or equal to 2m plus 1, then mu I is n minus m. So in particular, if in this case of FP bar and m equal to 2, then question 1 has an affirmative answer for all n bigger than or equal to 3. You see, I said that one of the open cases was m equal to 2 and n equal to 5. So n equal to 3, obviously it follows trivially because the difference n minus m is 1. And if difference n minus m is equal to 2, which is n equal to 4, that case will I mentioned as easy case, that when n minus m is equal to 2, and when n is bigger than or equal to 5, our theorem covers that. So question 1 has an affirmative answer for all these things. So this is a slight improvement from whatever we had. Now I'll just talk about one byproduct of these results. So in the same paper of Mohan Kumar, where he proved that partial solution to Murthy's conjecture, Mohan Kumar used some construction by Ferrand and Spiro, and settle that any local complete intersection curve in affine space ADK is a set theoretic complete intersection. So an ideal I is called a set theoretic complete intersection. If suppose ideal I is of height r, then if there exists another ideal J such that they have the same radical and J is a complete intersection generated by R elements, then I is called a set theoretic complete intersection or set theoretically generated by R elements. Now, Mohan Kumar used his result to prove that any local complete intersection curve is a set theoretic complete intersection, a curve in affine space. Now, analogous question for local complete intersection surfaces is still open, and there are some results, and one can look at this famous article of Louis Wesnick's in American Journal of Maths, so where he lists all these problems and gives exposition. So in case of k equal to fp bar, the famous paper of Bloch, Murthy, Spiro, they prove that any local complete intersection surface in the affine 4 space is a set theoretic complete intersection. So even for fp bar for n greater than or equal to 5, meaning or d greater than or equal to 5, affine 5 space, etc., this was open. So as an application of our theorem, we extend Murthy's Bloch, Murthy, Spiro's result and show that any local complete intersection surface in AD where d is bigger than or equal to 4 is a set theoretic complete intersection. Well, how do we prove this? So let me just mention two results. So one is very similar to what Mohan Kumar did, this Ferrand construction. So first one has to prove the following result. So following Ferrand's constructions step by step very carefully. So let R be an affine algebra of dimension d bigger than or equal to 4 over fp bar, and I is a local complete intersection ideal of height d minus 2. So I is a surface, R mod I is dimension 2. Now then there is an ideal J such that J is J is between I and I square. So I and J, they have the same radical. And J has this additional property that J is a local complete intersection ideal of height d minus 2, and J mod J square is generated by d minus 2 elements. So this is crucial, right? For I, we did not know that whether I mod I square is generated by d minus 2 elements or not. So d minus 2, J mod J square is generated by d minus 2 elements. And now if one can prove that J is a complete intersection, one is done. So we then prove that any local complete intersection surface in the affine space AD is a complete intersection. So this is again direct application of the main result I proved. So apply that to J and you get that I is a set theoretic complete intersection. Yeah, so next is so I'm done here. So here these are the references, and okay, I have already shared the PDF and therefore if one wants to look at the references, one can find it here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrinal, for a very interesting talk. We have some questions from audience. There's already one question from Ravi Rao. Or it's a comment. Since you can lift generators over finite field algebras, does it help to cover part of Fazl's work?
Yes, actually, I have been trying to do that for finite fields, but I have not been able to do it yet. But obviously, after FP bar, the field that comes to mind is the finite field, and I think it is plausible. It should be, one should be able to do that sometime.
What is the hitch?
Finite fields.
No, what is the hitch?
What is the H meaning for finite fields? The obstruction is there, right? If I have an affine algebra of dimension d over a finite field, and if I have I mod I squared g is generated by d elements, it may not get lifted because there are projective modules without having unimodular element over such
Yeah.
rings, right? So
Right.
that will prevent. So it is not automatic. So I think one needs a different kind of method.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah, Ravaya Basu had a request. If you
Hmm.
can show exercise 1.
If I can.
Ravaya, can you ask your question?
Can you please show once more once again exercise 1?
Yeah, about exercise 1. Actually, I cannot hear you properly. So can you say it again in exercise 1?
No, just show it. I just want to see it again.
Oh, you wanted to see exercise 1. Okay. So I'll make it a bit smaller so that you can see the whole thing. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't recall. Is it also there in my thesis?
Yeah, it should be there. It
Yes,
should be.
put it in one place.
And thank
You have put all the sentences in one place.
So it is very much there because yeah, that's how this Mohan Kumar's theorem is proved there, right? Meaning the exposition is given in the same format. So it is there.
Part
Okay.
3 is not mentioned in one place. It's in a different
Part
place.
part 3, yeah, yeah, that is true.
That's what she meant.
And sir,
Okay, okay.
I have one more question. Can
Hmm.
you? Yeah. So maybe, I don't know whether relevant or not. So any of this result can we think to generalize for graded rings?
Last part I could not hear. Generalized to
For graded rings.
graded rings. No, I really don't know. Meaning, problem is that there are some reductions, right? For graded rings, this reduction is very difficult. So, for example, okay, since you asked, I can tell another thing that apart from FP bar, I was also looking at the situation Q bar, meaning algebraic closure of rational numbers. So there actually there is a similar conjecture, which is a very deep conjecture. I think Bloch-Williamson conjecture. So there, if that conjecture is true, then one can also improve this result. But Srinivas and Amlandu, they proved it for graded algebras, and the reduction technique, it does not work automatically like what we did here. You cannot maintain the graded structure by doing that. So that is again another question I'll be interested in, that one can replace FP bar by Q bar or not.
So what is the reference for that? This
Okay, so I think I have it here. Amlendu's and Srinivas's, that is an article. Yeah, this is zero cycles on singular varieties.
So, Mrinal, have you seen Foster's version of Mohan Kumar's theorem? Just after Mohan Kumar proved it, he gave another version.
Oh, no, I have not.
You should look at it because it gives you a geometric reason for that bound.
Okay,
P
okay.
plus 1. Yeah, they mentioned that. So
Okay.
it's geometric in reasoning.
Okay.
That helps you to maybe think about decreasing it, maybe not so easy. Why it is not so easy.
Yeah. Sure.
Of course, Murthy says very different way of doing things.
Mhm.
Also, I think if you see the proof which I gave, that showed that Sayre's conjecture was not the real reason. It was a group theory argument which showed that the vectors were completable if one of the coefficient was a monic polynomial.
Okay.
It's actually a group theory argument due to Suslin,
Mhm.
which is used. And of course, Suslin's argument does not use anything.
Mm-hmm.
String splitting, x inverse, you can do x and x inverse separately.
Yeah.
That doesn't require anything. It's an independent statement by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there are some attempts of generalizing that by Manoj Keshari and his students.
Mm-hmm.
But perhaps something else might be useful in that direction, though at present they have not got anything very new. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Mrinal, I had a question about question 1.
Okay.
Can one ask this for regular rings rather than polynomial rings?
Yes.
Is that false? I mean, is that false?
I don't know any obvious answer that it is false, but obviously, yes, one can ask this question definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, to some extent you can carry this through, right? The same thing. Yeah, so you are saying that in place of K, I can take a regular ring or not? Yeah. So.
No, map from one regular ring to another.
One regular ring to another. Okay. No, I don't know. I'll think about it, and if I have something in mind, I'll tell you.
In local algebra, many times, if some result is true for polynomial ring, we ask it for regular local rings, and very often there is a good analog for regular local rings.
No, but for regular local ring, is it always true?
No. I am asking for regular rings rather than regular local rings.
Locally, this is always true.
Yeah.
That is true.
I don't think it should be true for regular rings. Because we always have a Dedekind domain. So where the kernel need not be correct number of generated. So such a thing should not be true for regular rings. Actually, it's not true for regular rings.
Yeah, but it is these small examples only where it is false usually. For larger sizes, things improve actually.
Yeah, for Dedekind
domains.
That
is what one notices actually. So of course for Dedekind domains, what you are saying it is false. It's correct. But it might still work in higher sizes.
Oh, you think it may work in higher sizes?
Yeah. There's a chance.
I have one question that has anyone is there any literature for particularly for I to be monomial ideals?
I to be monomial ideals. Yeah, people worked on that. I think if you look at this Mondal's work on discrete Hodge algebra, etc., you will see from there you can find a lot of references.
Even now there are a lot of work going on in that direction. Perhaps Vinay Wagh or Neeraj may be able to tell you. There are examples where they have worked out things. Maybe even Jayantan. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Monomial ideals.
I'm sorry, I don't really have an immediate answer.
Yeah, that's not likely to be there. Yeah, it's difficult to remember. But there are people who in this audience have worked on such questions. Sen Gupta, Indranath.
Yeah.
Any other questions from audience? Okay, so in that case, we close our seminar by thanking Mrinal for his very beautiful talk. and we shall meet by a lecture on Friday for a lecture by Sarang Sane. So we'll